From poor management skills
Just loopy!
I've been called worse than that.
Wake up and admit it!
to just plain stupidity.
It's like eating a fucking wet diaper.
Here's a look at some of those Kitchen Nightmares owners who were determined to make their restaurant fail. Just like this restaurant from New York, which was on top of the seafood game in another life, but fell victim to the chaos created by not one, not two, but three of its owners.
There you go.
Talk about too many cooks. So Brian, David, and Greg, the trio behind the success, or should I say the failure of the Black Pearl, had one thing in common: their inability to work together.
Who the fuck put these letters on here?
I couldn't tell you.
The power struggle between these three owners was what ultimately sealed their restaurant's fate.
These guys are really stubborn.
Initially brought together by a shared dream of creating their own premier lobster restaurant in Manhattan, soon they found themselves drowning in $250,000 of debt. But this is where things took a turn for the worst. Instead of uniting to tackle their financial woes, they spiraled into a dysfunctional dynamic where communication only happened through emails and texts. Yeah, that's not the most ideal way to resolve a conflict, huh? Eventually, this lack of cohesive leadership left the restaurant adrift, with no clear direction or management whatsoever.
I do give a fuck, and you know I give a fuck.
Upon Chef Ramsay's arrival, it became evident that the owners' relationships were in shambles to say the very least. They were never seen together at the restaurant, but each of them did their damnedest to take full control of the place. Especially this man right here, David.
Well, it comes from the same vendor.
Holy shit!
Described as the most egotistical of the trio, David defended lackluster dishes and insisted he was serving Maine lobster while actually using Canadian lobster. Yeah, the place was literally scamming their customers. This deception misled customers and further contributed to their growing dissatisfaction. And with time, the restaurant became more and more deserted. When Chef Ramsay stayed back to witness the dinner service, he observed firsthand the chaos behind the scenes. And let me tell you, it was an ugly sight, plain and simple.
Getting very fucking tired of that shit.
While David attempted to take charge, he only succeeded in fostering further disorganization and poor quality control. Meanwhile, Greg, who was usually in the kitchen, found himself out of place in the dining area due to David's takeover. Then Brian was pretty much nowhere to be seen.
The business does not need Brian.
Yeesh, he couldn't care less about the place going down. The breaking point came when Chef Ramsay called for a staff meeting. Let me remind you, this was a rare event for the place. He asked the staff to vote for a general manager, and guess who got picked?
Greg.
The decision was a glimmer of hope amidst the turmoil, but sadly, it was short-lived. In the meantime though, the Kitchen Nightmares team got to work on a quick makeover to try and turn things around. Brian and David returned to find a restaurant that they barely recognized. However, no amount of gussying up was going to quash their complete dysfunctionality as leaders. The kitchen, now under Greg's management, struggled to keep up during the service.
And I'll see what we can do about that, alright?
And in spite of Chef Ramsay's hard work, the place was doomed. Black Pearl closed its doors a mere 4 days after the Kitchen Nightmares episode aired. Yelp reviews reflected the dismal state of affairs, with customers lamenting the poor quality of food and service. And what did David do? In a lengthy and bitter open letter, he blamed Chef Ramsay for the decline in sales.
My advice would be for you to disappear, and the sooner the better.
I know, to hell with responsibility, right? And David returned to his music career, leaving nothing behind but a failed restaurant and a bitter rant against Chef Ramsay. It's a real shame that this place had everything that it needed to be set up for success: location, quality ingredients, and even a total makeover, but I guess greed and incompetence won out at the end of the day. But from one disaster to another, I'm heading over to the bustling north end of Boston to a little Italian restaurant called La Galleria 33.
I'm calling him Ramsay, and that's what I'm calling him. Mr. Ramsay, at least.
Now this place was opened with high hopes by sisters Rita and Lisa. They were trying to follow in the footsteps of their father's successful restaurant, L'Osteria. But despite all the years of experience behind them, they were off to a rocky start right from the beginning.
It never took off.
The sisters made a big mistake by opening their restaurant just a stone's throw away from their father's place. I mean, they were literally competing against themselves. And that too, in a market already saturated with over 80 Italian restaurants. So, of course, they were facing stiff competition right out of the gate. But that aside, there were some serious issues brewing within the restaurant itself.
They are very unprofessional.
The staff complained about the unprofessional behavior of the owners, and you won't believe what they had to say.
Lisa drinks and Rita smokes everywhere.
Yeah, not exactly the spitting image of responsible business owners, huh? But what exactly did they have to say about it?
We're like staffed by a bunch of nuts.
Rita and Lisa were quick to point fingers at literally everyone else within striking distance, everyone except themselves. They claimed to have tried everything to boost business, redecorating, changing the menu, even lowering prices. But apparently nothing worked. And oh, by the way, they thought that changing the font on the menu would somehow skyrocket sales. Marketing geniuses these two were not. What's more, guess who was manning the kitchen? Rita's ex-husband, Doug. There's a joke in there somewhere, but it doesn't feel appropriate. Still, Doug wasn't even professionally trained, he simply cooked their father's recipes. And by the way, he wasn't even a fan of Italian food. Now imagine what happened when Chef Ramsay ordered a variety of dishes from the menu that the sisters had put oh so much effort into.
Gross.
The meatballs were rubbery and bland, the veal was gnarly and overcooked, and the seafood ravioli was frozen and tasteless. And Chef Ramsay was upset. I mean, what really could you expect from a chef who neither ate nor enjoyed Italian cuisine? Well, of course, it would reflect on the poor quality of the dishes.
Nope.
No, can't be bothered.
Wow.
And the dinner service that followed was way worse than Chef Ramsay's experience during lunch. There was no organization, no communication, and even worse, the extent of it is something that you have to see to believe. Yeah, Doug actually dropped the chicken on the floor and then put it right back into the pan. Like, excuse me? Ever heard of hygiene, anyone? Either way, customers were leaving unhappy, complaining about the awful food. And get this, they had no idea of Doug's painfully low cooking standards. So you could imagine just how bad the food really was.
They're very fishy, especially the mussels. Yeah, it's not very fresh.
In fact, one of the customers even sent back a dish that was supposed to be cooked medium rare, but came out looking a little more well done. Honestly, with how burnt that shit was, maybe poorly done was a better fit. Rita, however, stubbornly defended it.
Are you deluded?
No, I'm not deluded.
Chef Ramsay, on the other hand, was more interested in taking a deeper look into the kitchen, and what he found there left him speechless. From rotten food to dirty mussels and frozen pizza, it was a disaster. In a last-ditch effort to save the restaurant, Chef Ramsay had a heart-to-heart with the sisters, urging them to step up and take charge. And surprisingly, the siblings signed up to help make a change, starting with dropping their unhealthy smoking and drinking habits.
No more drinking for me, no more smoking for you.
All right.
On relaunch night, despite a few little hiccups, Chef Ramsay's new menu and decor were an instant hit with the customers.
I need to cross.
All right, so I will tell you when they're done for the entry.
Yes.
However, despite the improvements, La Galleria 33 simply wasn't sustainable. With customers thrashing the restaurant on social media to a huge pile of trash piling up right in front of the restaurant, La Galleria 33 just couldn't take the heat. Anyway, here comes an owner who first invited Chef Ramsay to help fix her restaurant, and when all fingers started to point at her, she decided to let hell loose.
Can you say something besides
Just loopy.
I've been called worse than that.
Wake up and admit it.
And man, what a fiery showdown it was. Yup, I'm talking about Abby Cabral, the owner of Down City in Providence, Rhode Island. When things kicked off, the establishment seemed like a dream venture for Abby and her friend Rico Conforti. But this dream soon turned into a nightmare.
Blame me all you want. You're insane.
Back in the day, the owners were full of hope and ambition. However, their dreams soon turned sour as they faced the harsh reality of running a restaurant.
He has a full-time day job, and my job is to take care of everything in this restaurant.
While Rico juggled a full-time job in finance, Abby, thanks to her 33 years of restaurant experience, took charge of the day-to-day operations. But despite all their efforts, the restaurant struggled to draw in customers. Abby couldn't understand why. According to her, the restaurant was perfect. From the decor to the quality of the food, she couldn't figure out why the sales were dwindling.
I don't know what's wrong.
However, her deluded perception was far from the truth. The staff, including servers like Josh, Mark, and Nick, harbored so much resentment towards Abby, and they had good reason for it.
Abby is a complete psycho bitch.
She wasn't willing to listen to others' opinions, and what do you know? Abby's insistence on having her own way led to a bloated menu with no clear direction. Staff members were terrified to challenge her, fearing a personal backlash if they disagreed with her commands.
And it's definitely why your restaurant's failing.
When Chef Ramsay arrived, he was met with a hell of a lot of resistance from Abby.
I think you're one of those customers that I would fire immediately.
She refused to accept his critique of the restaurant's food, even as he pointed out the failures of their room service, which, let me remind you, was handled by Down City.
That room service was you at your best. I'm myself before I start eating.
Wow.
Let me tell you that.
The famous chef experienced firsthand the dismal quality of the dishes. From soggy calamari to lukewarm meatloaf, calling what they were serving food would be very, very generous.
No.
Abby's lack of culinary expertise was evident, yet she remained staunchly on the defensive. Chef Ramsay, on the other hand, was determined to uncover the root of the problem. Abby's stubbornness and refusal to accept criticism, the only two reasons the restaurant failed. Also, without a competent head chef and a cohesive team, the restaurant lacked consistency and direction. Abby's decision to maintain a large menu only worsened this issue.
I don't even talk to my staff like this. Why don't you get the out of my restaurant?
Want me to go?
I would love you to go.
Despite Ramsay's efforts to instill change, including reducing the menu size and bringing in an experienced chef, the restaurant continued to struggle. Negative Yelp reviews poured in from all sides, criticizing the food quality and service. Naturally, Down City succumbed to the pressures of the declining local economy. With Abby's heartfelt farewell message to patrons, the restaurant closed its doors on December 10th, 2011. But guess what? Abby's post-show endeavors took a different direction as she transitioned into a career as a personal trainer. Meanwhile, the fallout from Down City's failure extended way beyond its closure. Sometime later, Abby stepped up to, well, clarify a few misconceptions in an up-and-close interview for a TV channel.
I really didn't know the extreme of what I was in for with him, and he just right on me from the get-go.
On the other hand, executive chef James, brought in to help revitalize the restaurant, moved on to new opportunities after the show. In the end, Down City's downfall was a result of Abby's inability to accept criticism and unwillingness to adapt to change.
I'm not gonna listen to you.
You're in denial.
I'm not in denial.
Yes, you
I am not in
are. Yes, you
denial.
are.
But here comes a restaurant from New York City with a menu so vast that it left its customers extremely confused. To make things worse, this place catered more to its crowd of insects than people. Yup, that's Dylan's for you.
Everything's so messed up.
Owned by a guy by the name of Mohammed, Dylan's was not only struggling with an identity crisis, but financial losses of over $20,000 a month. Every single month. This dude was practically bleeding, but did he care? Well...
I cannot continue losing money like this.
You see, this restaurant claimed to be an American-Irish spot with an Indian twist. Whatever that means. But the menu had anything and everything from around the world without rhyme or reason.
I think people are a bit confused as to like what kind of restaurant this is.
But how bad could the food be? Turns out, it was horrible. When Chef Ramsay ordered a variety of dishes from the menu, he couldn't figure if he was more upset or frustrated with the chef.
There's meat in there.
I mean, who throws meat into a plaster of assorted vegetarian appetizers? To make things worse, the curry had a rotten tomato garnish. The famous chef couldn't stop wondering how the poor excuse for quality control even came into existence in the first place. Perhaps the most concerning dish was the beef, which, wait for it, wasn't even beef. Like, what the hell was happening here? They were serving meat to vegetarians and lamb instead of beef? Couldn't they just figure out what was what? Or were they deliberately trying to drive customers away? Honestly, take your pick. But that wasn't the end, oh no. The salmon that came next was overcooked and tough because, well, their so-called fresh fish had been frozen since the Ice Age.
Who made this?
I did.
Chef Ramsay's inspection of the kitchen only uncovered more problems than you'd ever expect. And there were flies, so many flies.
I don't like eating with flies swarming around me.
And to no one's surprise, the chef admitted to regularly serving old meat and seafood past its prime without a hint of remorse. Forget about executing the wide variety of cuisines on the menu, these people were struggling to do the bare minimum.
I didn't expect it's gonna go that bad.
But I'm sure nothing could beat this ghastly sight of chicken being stored on the freaking dirty floor of all places.
Oh, fucking holy Moses.
Well, that'd be my cue to walk out of the place and never come back. Or even within like 10 blocks of the place. I mean, how are they even functioning? To answer that, look no further than the reckless manager, Martin.
General manager.
Yup, dude was more focused on his personal phone calls and dilly-dallying with the female staff than actually, managing. But wait, where the heck was the owner?
This is so horrible, I should close down this place.
Yeah, maybe you should for your own good, and more so for the welfare of your customers. For one, Mohammed had no idea of what was going on in his own kitchen. To make things even worse was that he let Martin run the show, who was clearly beyond unqualified. I mean, even if the chef is at fault, how do you explain all the dead flies, the roaches, and all the food that was rotting before their very eyes?
Look at the color of those chicken wings.
Oh yeah, there were rat droppings too. I mean, there's no excuse for letting things go this far. None at all. Chef Ramsay was done. He brought in a professional cleaning crew to thoroughly disinfect the restaurant from top to bottom. And God only knows this place was in desperate need of it.
Look!
With that, the hygiene part of it was finally taken care of. For now. But what do you do with the chefs, who didn't even know where they were?
Where are we?
New Jersey. No.
New Jersey, fuck me.
Now imagine this guy whipping up all the different kinds of cuisine they claim to serve, huh? I mean, my heart goes out to Chef Ramsay, who tried his very best to teach him how to cook salmon.
Very good. Look at me. Oh, Jesus. Okay, very, very good. Tell him he's only a scallop, yeah? We haven't lost our children.
Anyway, Ramsay eventually managed to fix the menu, the decor, and to some extent, the workflow inside the kitchen. But it was now time to address the elephant in the room, Martin. As Chef Ramsay sat down with Mohammed to help him see the truth and sack the irresponsible manager, the dude decided to cut in and plead his case, quite disrespectfully at that.
For manager to leave, you're recommending. You are enough. I've had enough.
But just look at Mohammed, will ya? Instead of taking charge, he just sat there unsure of what to do, while Martin almost came close to challenging Chef Ramsay.
You've accused me of riding on this man's shoulders.
Why are you pointing like that?
Because I'm angry, okay? You want to see passion? Good. I'm giving you passion.
Thankfully, Ramsay isn't one to take bullshit from anyone. But I can't help but notice how afraid Mohammed was of his manager.
I have nothing to be guilty of.
You what?
Nothing.
But well, I guess there's only so much you can teach someone, because the next thing you know, Martin sued the production house for $3 million in damages, claiming the portrayal ruined his career. Meanwhile, despite the facelift, Dillon's, later renamed as Purnima for some reason, shut its doors for good in 2009. Now, if you ask me, I'd rate Abby the craziest of the lot that we reviewed today. Those few minutes she clashed with Chef Ramsay were probably the wildest encounters we've ever seen on Kitchen Nightmares. But who would you add to this list of crazy owners? Now, do me a favor and keep the obvious ones like Amy and Sebastian out for now. I've covered them more times than I care to admit at this point. But I know that there are many others who are just as insane. So, what are you waiting for? Make sure to drop your thoughts in the comments section down below, or you could also leave me a message on any of my social media pages. And if you thought the video was crazy, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn on my post notifications. Plus, hey, don't forget to check out this next video right here since it's even crazier.